Hi everyone, welcome to Leisrealtalk. All right, happy what Thursday? Happy Thursday, happy Friday. Okay, I've been working really hard today preparing for this session. I'm actually a little tired already, but I'll get through. It should be very very interesting program tonight. So we'll continue the discussion from Tuesday, right? So we know if China attacks Taiwan, other countries will be involved, and the conflict in the Taiwan Strait will evolve into a World War III. But whether this will happen or not depends on two factors. One is the intensity of Sino-US relations or tensions, and the other is the Chinese leaders' frame of mind. We discussed US-China tensions as part in part one of this program, which was Tuesday, and today we'll focus on Xi Jinping's decision making, and we'll try to understand if he will attack Taiwan. Now, in order to tackle such a big question, I think the best way is to look at two opposing views. We don't have to agree or disagree, but getting two different views on the same subject has helped me getting to the bottom of issues in the past. So that's what we'll do tonight. I mentioned that there are two schools of thought. One believes that a war is imminent and unavoidable, and the other believes that the chance of a physical war is very small. So let's first hear the belief that a war is unavoidable. So, according to this view, Xi Jinping has already decided to start a hot war with the United States to decide the common destiny of humanity. And the place of war is Taiwan, and the time is between 2025 to 2027. And the person who strongly holds that view is former law professor and writer Yuan Hongbing. Let me share his picture. So he expressed his view in a book called The Final War of 2025. Here's the book cover. It says, the subtitle says, A Panoramic Description of the War in the Taiwan Strait in 2025. The book was published last month. It came out last month, and some people call it a book of geopolitical prophecy. The book is written in fictional form. I think the author chose fictional form to give him more freedom. And the synopsis of the story goes like this. Basically, CCP attacks Taiwan in 2025. Taiwan's military and civilians resist the PLA, while the United States, Japan, Britain, and Australia join forces to assist Taiwan. Inside China, due to the serious setback of the military operation, some senior officers in the PLA rebel against Xi Jinping. This leads to a large-scale civilian revolt and eventually caused the collapse of the regime. The book addresses the following five topics. One, Xi Jinping's desire to take over Taiwan. Two, how Taiwan can overcome and defeat the CCP's invasion. Three, how the attack on Taiwan will evolve into a national revolt on the mainland and eventually end the CCP. Four, the end of Xi Jinping. And number five, this war isn't about Taiwan only. It's the last battle for humanity to fight communism. After the battle, the world will be free of communism. So that's just a quick synopsis of the book, and that's not what I want to spend a lot of time on. I want to talk about the author. So who is Yuan Hongbing? He is a dissident now living in Australia. He's the author of another book on Taiwan called The Great Tribulation of Taiwan, which was published, I would say, in 2009. So it's 14 years ago. Yuan's most impressive credential is that he has known Xi Jinping personally. The two have been drinking together in their early years, and this experience makes Yuan's insight very unique. So let me talk about a little bit about their drinking, their drinking history or drinking experience. So Yuan is 1 year older than Xi Jinping, and in 1988 they were in their early 30s. I think one is 32 and the other is what, 33 maybe. And the two became drinking buddies for 8 months. At that time, Xi Jinping was the deputy or a deputy mayor, because there are multiple deputy mayors, of Xiamen in Fujian. And he went to Beijing frequently to network with other influential princelings, right? Because he was only a low level, low level local official. So he went to Beijing frequently to network with other princelings. And one of his friends was the son of former party secretary Hu Yaobang. So the junior Hu knew Xi Jinping likes to drink. So he introduced Yuan Hongbing, the author, to him. Yuan was a young law professor at Beijing University at the time. So the two met every other week and sometimes every a couple of weeks. Xi Jinping brought with him 2 bottles of Mao Tai. So those of you who are familiar with Chinese liquor, you know Mao Tai is the most expensive Chinese liquor. It's 120 proof, so it's very it's hard liquor. And so Xi Jinping provided the liquor and Yuan provided the food. So Yuan took Xi Jinping to eat at a restaurant near Beijing University. And so this went on for 8 months. So Yuan disclosed this history in a recent interview. I haven't got time to provide the link of that interview in the reference section yet. I provided some reference links already, but not that one because I kind of lost it. But I'll add it after this program. So he gave an interview last week, a couple of days ago, that talked about this drinking experience with Xi Jinping. But most importantly, he talked about his observation of Xi Jinping from that time. And he said that Xi Jinping normally was a quiet person who doesn't talk a whole lot. But after a few cups of liquor, he would open to talk. But the stuff he uttered were all Maoist theories, not something that's interesting to Yuan, at least. And he said that Xi Jinping didn't receive proper education. And his education level is only at the level of elementary school. And the things that he talked about were what he learned during the Cultural Revolution. So he really believes that the Chinese leader never received proper education. So the things that he knows is very limited. And the things he talked about, but he's very loyal to friends, and he is a man of ideological faith, right? Or he has what do you call ideological vision. But his handicap is that he has very limited knowledge outside the communist doctrines. And the worst is that people in his inner circles are people just like him. He demands loyalty and is surrounded by a group of people who lack proper education and knowledge just like him. And according to Yuan, this can be costly to China, or this has already been costly to China. And he said all decisions to launch a war are irrational. And Xi Jinping is likely to make that irrational decision. So the above is based on his observation while drinking with Xi Jinping in their early years. The second reason why he believes Xi has made up his mind for war is based on information he received from his sources within the power circles of Beijing. So in a February 26, 2023 interview, Yuan Hongbing said that Xi Jinping has made a two-step plan to take over Taiwan. The first step is to deploy CCP's influence machine apparatus, aka the United Front Work system, to launch a comprehensive cognitive warfare in Taiwan to influence the island's 2024 presidential election. The goal is to have the Kuomintang, or the KMT party, to win the election. After KMT wins, Beijing will coerce KMT leaders to sign a peaceful unification agreement with the CCP. So this would be agreement between the CCP and then between China and Taiwan, or between the CCP and the KMT. So that effectively leaves the United States out of it, right? So the United States cannot intervene. So influencing the 2024 Taiwan presidential election is CCP's top priority for 2023 and 24. That's step number one. Step number two, if KMT loses, the CCP will launch a war in the spring of 2025 to take over Taiwan. Yes, he does say, or he did say, spring of 2025. And according to him, the prospect of war makes Xi Jinping very excited, because he said at a Politburo meeting after the 20th Party Congress that he will be joyous, or it's, I don't know how you translate that, or it's joyful, or it's fun for him to welcome the great battle in turbulent waves. Okay, whatever that means. And Yuan further said that Xi Jinping has been mentally prepared. Of course, this is based on his sources from Beijing. That Xi Jinping has been mentally prepared and has already kicked off the wartime mechanism or systems. So we know that Beijing has implemented nationwide the basic supply cooperatives, 供销社, right? The government-owned retail cooperatives that sell daily necessities, and the public canteens, has implemented provincial defense mechanisms, has mobilized 7 million reservists, and completed the roster of 42 million militiamen. And another preparation is financial, because you need money to start a war. Well, Xi Jinping has ordered, he ordered after the 20th Party Congress to increase the intensity of the anti-corruption campaign. The goal is to recoup 1.5 trillion yuan renminbi, which is about $210 billion, to recoup that amount of money from corrupt officials. Excuse me, I have to take a sip. Excuse me. Other than officials, wealthy business owners who are the bagmen of senior officials are also the target. This money will be used for the war, including preparing 1,000 strategic nuclear warheads. That's according to his to an interview he gave. This Chinese dissident gave in a recent recording. I provided the links already. That's on February 26th. In an April 4th interview, in another interview, Yuan Hongbing reviewed why Xi Jinping arrested the former head of the PLA National Defense University, Admiral Liu Yazhou. Here we go. This man. I made a video on April 5th on his arrest, remember at the time, rumors had it that Liu would be given a suspended death sentence, and he's considered a princeling because his wife is the daughter of a former president of China. So, according to Yuan, the heavy sentencing, or the would-be heavy sentencing, is also for war preparation. The vice chairman of Central Military Commission, the man that Xi Jinping trusted the most in the PLA, Admiral Zhang Youxia, this guy, he looks like he's not very happy. This is the second in command in the PLA. So Xi Jinping is the chairman of the military commission. So that he is the first vice chairman. So this is the second in command. And his father fought with Xi Jinping's father during the Civil War. So this general, this admiral, is considered a princeling as well, and he's buddy with Xi Jinping. So he requested to have Liu Yazhou removed because Liu's presence in the PLA is demoralizing. So for 8 years, Liu was the political commissar of the PLA's National Defense University, which is called the cradle of the Chinese generals. He was also a faculty member and taught military strategies. Admiral Liu's pessimistic view of a Taiwan Strait war is widely popular among mid to senior ranking PLA officers. Excuse me. And Vice Chairman Zhang Youxia believes that if Liu is not removed, PLA's confidence and determination during the war will be seriously jeopardized. So Liu's this guy's crimes have been announced to senior PLA officers above the rank of commanders. So he's accused of demoralizing the PLA in the name of academic research, also spreading fears, and also disrupting the Central Military Commission's plan. So those were his crimes. His books and writings have been completely removed from public platforms, online and offline, both. So Yuan also talked about the role North Korea, Russia, Iran will play during the war. For example, he said that the CCP is training 50,000 North Korean special troops. But that's a topic for another discussion, and we won't focus on that today. But the point is, according to this China expert, Xi Jinping has clearly mapped out a war plan, and that's the main point. So what do I think? Well, I cannot dispute what he said because I have no basis to disagree his observations, because he has had firsthand knowledge of the Chinese leader. And I cannot disagree the information he obtained from inside China. But the only thing I would caution is I don't believe Xi Jinping's education is only, or his intelligence, his education or intelligence is only at the level of elementary school. I know many people, many Chinese like to or want to believe that he's dumb and not very smart. But I think he may not be as dumb as we want him to be. So I just want to caution that. So let me now present you the view that believes Xi Jinping will not attack Taiwan. And the person who believes that, excuse me, I'm sorry. The person who believes that Xi Jinping will not attack Taiwan is Dr. Zhang Tianliang, who is based in New York and known in the Chinese community for his geopolitical analysis and his Chinese history programs. He has a YouTube channel with over 500,000 subscribers, and I noticed that he has always said that Xi Jinping will not attack Taiwan. Um, on June 2nd, Dr. Zhang was in Taiwan attending a symposium with other respected leaders in the field. And in that speech, he gave 6 reasons. He summarized all of his points and gave 6 reasons why Xi Jinping will not start a hot war against Taiwan. I mean, he believes that Xi Jinping does have the ambition to take over Taiwan, but he just does not believe that he will start a military operation, a hot war against Taiwan. He thinks Xi Jinping will use other means to take over Taiwan. Now, his 6 reasons, I thought 2 are very similar, so I consolidated them into 4 reasons. The first reason is that other CCP leaders will not let Xi Jinping attack Taiwan for their own personal interest. And Dr. Zhang said that if CCP invades Taiwan, the Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act of 2023, which was introduced in February by the US Congress, will disclose and freeze the assets of the most powerful CCP officials and their families, their in-laws, and the families of their in-laws. So it's a wide network of, it's a very wide network of people within the CCP. And he estimated that high-ranking CCP officials collectively have $10 trillion worth of assets overseas, based on a October 2012 article published by The Economist. At the time, The Economist estimated that the CCP leaders have $3.6 trillion. So Dr. Zhang just added, he going from 2012 to 2020, he thinks it's a total of $10 trillion. That's his number. So he said that it would be devastating to these officials if their money is confiscated. And he said these officials wouldn't allow Xi Jinping to attack Taiwan for fear of losing their family's wealth. He said one indicator of war is when we see that CCP officials divesting in the West and moving large sums of money to China or Taiwan, then that's a sign that war or preparation for war is ongoing. Well, I think we have already seen that sign. We've already seen that indicator. We saw this in the 4th quarter of last year and also the 1st quarter. Please check out my videos on Blackstone. I made a video about Blackstone, the financial problems with Blackstone, and also Silicon Valley, Credit Suisse, and how they're all tied to the massive withdrawal of assets from China. I've later got confirmation from people inside China that even the mainland Chinese knew that the Silicon Valley Bank, all the financial institutions that had that we knew that became major news here a couple of months ago, were the result of Chinese selling their assets in the West for fear of being confiscated. So even the mainland Chinese know this. Okay, so, and the second reason, so that's his first reason. But I think I'll talk about it later. If he said the indicator, he mentioned the indicator, but I think we've already seen the indicator, meaning that the preparation for war has already started. And the second reason Xi Jinping won't start a war is he said that it's because of China's dependence on foreign technologies and energy. Losing access to foreign technology means that the CCP's high-tech surveillance tool will be gone, because it will be difficult for CCP to maintain its high-tech surveillance system if they lose foreign technologies, and China's manufacturing capability will be gone. And also 70% of China's oil is imported. If Taiwan is attacked, the US warships can block can block the the strategic strait, and China's oil reserves may not last that long. So that's his second reason. And the third reason, I don't think the second reason is. I'll comment on his points later at the very end. Let me just introduce his points. His third reason is very, very interesting and very eye-opening. And he said Xi Jinping is concerned, will have a big concern for his security. This is because in everyday training, PLA soldiers are not given real weapons. Their leaders, PLA leaders, don't allow the Chinese military personnel to carry real weapons. So if the CCP attacks Taiwan, that means the PLA soldiers will be given real weapons to fight. This can be dangerous for Xi Jinping. And this is a genuine concern. And he's not the first one or the only one that has this concern. It has been the concern for other CCP leaders before him. So, for example, during the Tiananmen Square massacre on June 4th, 1989, to suppress the protesting students, sending 10,000 armed police was more than enough. But Deng Xiaoping sent, do you know how many people? He sent 300,000 military personnel. Okay, 10,000 armed police was more than enough, because the students were, they were students. They were peaceful. They were just sitting in the square singing. They went on hunger strike. So instead of sending only 10,000 armed police, Deng Xiaoping sent 300,000 military personnel. Why? Well, it was to prevent the 10,000 armed police who were armed with weapons. It's to prevent them from suddenly revolting against the regime. And Dr. Zhang said that there's another security concern for Xi Jinping. That is, if he attacks Taiwan, he will step down if the PLA loses. But if the PLA wins, he may still have to step down, because the PLA general or the PLA leader who wins the victory will be more powerful than him, because that guy has weapons and can overthrow him, right? He could be more popular than him, and he also controls the gun, the real gun. And there are many such historical lessons in Chinese history. So for Xi Jinping, no war means stability, and then he has to take a big chance, or he has to take chances if a war breaks out. That's according to Dr. Zhang's analysis. And the last reason is that Xi Jinping is very risk averse. And he knows, and this is a known fact, right, that the PLA is unlikely to win on the battlefield in a hot war. And Xi Jinping's risk-averse personality would prevent him from taking that risk. Okay, so what do I think? I think Dr. Zhang brought up some eye-opening points. Here's my analysis of his analysis. Sorry. The first one, about officials against war for fear of losing their family wealth. Within the Communist Party and the PLA, there are the ones against the war, but there are also those who favor the war. The ones against the war are the ones who are established and are afraid to lose what they have. But we cannot ignore those who are in favor of the war. They're equally powerful. And this group isn't a small number. So, who are the people who are in favor of the war? The first group is lower ranking officials who don't have much assets overseas and who want to gain political favors by supporting the war or through the war. And the second is lower ranking PLA officers who want to move up the ladder. They want to fight in war to get ahead. And I was told that the senior PLA officers do not want to fight, do not want to see a war because they're afraid to lose what they have, and they know that they're likely to lose. And the most important reason is they don't want. They're already established. They have money. They have their status. Why do they want to lose all that? But for the lower ranking officers and soldiers, I mean, they've been trained to fight, right? And then the only way for them to move up the ladder is a war, right? To be accomplishing on battlefield. So they want to fight. They want to see a war. So that's the second group, the lower ranking PLA officers. And the third group is Xi Jinping's political enemies who want to seize the opportunity to overthrow him. Remember, I always talked about how the Jiang Zemin faction wanted to trick Xi Jinping into starting a war, and he has been walking between the fine line of using the war to justify holding on to power, to justify his third term, and then not actually starting a war because he's trying to prevent himself falling into the trap that his political enemies have set up for him. And that has been the case up until the 20th Party Congress. So his political enemies have been scheming to use the war to take him down. And then now, and these political enemies, the base for his political enemies, or the base for those who oppose him, might have expanded, right? They may include people within the PLA and also within the party. And so those people are trying to want him, trying to figure out how to use the war to overthrow him. So you see within the CCP, within the PLA, those who support and not support the war all have their ulterior motives. So it's very complex. I think it's more complex than what Dr. Zhang has presented when he gave the first reason why he thinks Xi Jinping will not want to start a hot war. Now, second reason about which he said about China's dependence on foreign technologies and resources, I don't think at this point Xi Jinping has the rationality to consciously avoid war so that China doesn't lose foreign technologies or resources. I think at this point he doesn't care anymore. Maybe a year ago or 18 months ago, it would be his concerns, but not anymore. But that's just my opinion. And the third point, which is the security concern about giving weapons to PLA soldiers, the security concern is very real, and I think it probably tortures Xi Jinping every day. But this won't stop him. He will go through more rounds of cleansing, like he has done in the past 10 years, to weed out all elements of insecurity or instability within the PLA. But he will not give up Taiwan just because there are some bad elements within the PLA. I think that would not be his personality. Again, this is my opinion. And the fourth one is about him being risk averse. I think it's true. He is risk averse. If you look at him, if you observe how he can swim between completely different policies in the past years. that shows you he can't he's risk averse, but that also means he's reactive. In the CCP's political struggle, they are he's forced to react. So a lot of this swing back and forth is reactive. Um, is his impulse to react. Um, but I don't think he has the luxury to make a rational decision by clearly calculating the risk and the benefits. So risk averse is an investment term, right? So I don't think he at this point, sitting there with his team to calculate, well, what's our risk, what's our benefits. I don't think he has. I think he has already passed that stage, because his biggest predicament at this point is uncontrollability of both internal and external affairs. The uncontrollability of Sino-US tensions, the uncontrollability of the decline of the domestic economy, and the uncontrollability of the resentment of the Chinese people and his officials. These are all serious threats that he's facing. And at this point, he's unable to repair Sino-US relations. He's unable to resuscitate the Chinese economy, and he's unable to revive people's trust in the regime. It's already beyond repair, beyond resuscitation, and beyond revival. So for a regime that depends on absolute control, for a regime that demands absolute control, when you don't have control, what does that mean? Losing control to the CCP leader is worse than war, right? To them, the biggest nightmare is losing control. So, so speaking of his state of mind, I think, having reviewed both arguments from two opposing views, I think the chance of war versus no war is 6.5 to 3.5. I was debating between 6 to 4 or 7 to 3, but I think it's somewhere in between. So I think you have 65% of the chances of having a war versus 35% of chances of no war. That's just based on everything that I have reviewed. And I think one important factor is what we discussed on Tuesday, that is the uncontrollability of the downward trend, the downward spiral of Sino-US relations. And just today's, I don't know if you've heard, Wall Street Journal reported that Beijing will pay, or probably has paid, Cuba billions of dollars to set up a spy outpost, and it's 100 miles from the US. And Wall Street Journal calls this China's new base for eavesdropping on the US doorstep. And this shows China's ambition isn't just confined to the Pacific. I think this is, I think ever since the spy balloon incident, these incidents, one after another, like what I said on Tuesday, the two military provocation, right? One one in the air, and one in the ocean by the Chinese Navy. So the two military incidents, and then now this spy outpost in Cuba. I mean, these incidents is happening so fast that I think the tension between U.S. China is on a fast downward spiral, and it's beyond the control of Xi Jinping and Biden. And that's what I said on Tuesday. So that, together with Xi Jinping's mindset, I think we have a greater risk of war than not. Okay, so I have finished talking, which is 45 minutes, a good 40 minutes. Let me see if people have questions for me. All right. If you have questions for me, put my name in the front. Um, I'm just picking questions randomly from Frank E. Lei, what do you think? Are Western leaders naive or not competent in understanding CCP's intentions? US thinks helping China economically is good for Chinese, but rather CCP curse on them. Yeah, your observation is true. I think the problem is, um, you know, somebody told me this. Um, a friend, a Chinese friend, told me this, and he said, "Have you noticed that nowadays, uh, you need non-professionals to lead the professionals? Like, if you want to succeed in a business, in a trade, if you have a professional to lead, to be the leader of an organization or of a enterprise, chances are you're probably gonna you're not going to succeed. You need to have somebody, you need to have an outsider who's not well trained in the profession to lead in order to succeed. And it's hard to, it's counter intuitive, right? But after years of, I mean, he told me this 10 years ago. At the time, I found it hard to believe. But after 10 years of observation, I found that to be true. You know why? Because professionals, whether you are professional politicians in this case or professional, um, let's say media, we were talking about media at the time. They have notions. They have developed a fixed mindset of how things ought to be done, and so they are afraid to try new things, and they don't think outside the box, and so and they're very proud of their professional skills, and they want to apply their professional skills in a way. They're so attached to their professional skills, they're so attached to their experience, and they don't focus on solving the problem. um, and so that's why they're not effective, and they cannot make groundbreaking efforts. And that's true. And I've witnessed leaders who are not in the profession who come in and lead, that you have people who have never had media experience, starting a media company and being really successful, or people who are not in healthcare. I mean, that's just an idea, but lead a healthcare organization and being very successful because they don't have notions that are restricting them. So I think, going back to your question, I think our politicians, our career politicians, in Europe and in North America, are so programmed. They're so proud of their experience, and they want to, they're so comfortable with their experience. And so they just do things that they're comfortable with. And now, with CCP is constantly looking, uh, one characteristic of CCP is they don't play by any rule. They don't play by rule. So that's why when you are a group of people who follow rules to deal with the CCP, you're going to lose. One of my most respected journalists, who his name is Shi Fu. I don't know how to say it in English, but he was. I introduced him in one of my programs. He was a Japanese who was born in China and who grew up in China and went to Japan in his teenager years. He's now at the head of a Japanese news bureau in Taiwan. So he's a true expert of China, Japan, and Taiwan. And so he said this. He said, you know what? Some people, he said, I don't know if Donald Trump is a madman, or is a crazy man, but at least when he was the president of the United States, all the other crazy men in the world were quiet. Like, if you look at the crazy men in North Korea, the crazy men in China, the crazy men in Russia, I mean, they were all behaving. So he was joking. He said, maybe you do need uh, one crazy man, or to deal with the other ones. But I think that he brought up a point. Sometimes you do need to have people uh, who are not trained in this profession to be more effective to deal with situations that are extraordinary. Okay, that's my sorry long answer to a question. For Master G Big Lay, if Taiwan was a girlfriend that got dumped by her boyfriend for flirting with other boys, and that ex-boyfriend was China, don't you think Taiwan's ex-boyfriend will kill her for breaking his heart? Wow, what an analogy. I think someone, yeah, a Taiwanese entertainer wrote a song based on this theme. Uh, well, I don't think Taiwan has flirted with other boys. I think I think you using your analogy, I think the better way, the more accurate way to describe this is the boyfriend of Taiwan claimed that, okay, you are mine, and therefore I do not allow you to uh, meet and see and interact with any other boys. You are mine, right? You should stay at home and not have any male friends. I forbid you uh, to talk to them. And for decades, that has been the case. All the other boys stopped talking to this girl whose name is Taiwan. And anyone who tried to talk to her, just as a friend, right? I mean, they may not even have a romantic interest in her. They just want to talk to her like, like a human being. This very jealous boyfriend would get very upset and would threaten with war, intimidation, or whatever. So all the boys got very quiet and they just, you know, shut up and didn't do anything. So this is how this girl has been living for decades. And now all the other boys realize that this this man, this boy i- i- is threatening. Not only he is harming this girl, but he can harm everyone else. So I think that all the boys now want to protect this girl, and this made this boyfriend or ex-boyfriend very mad. I think that would be a more accurate description of the situation, of the geopolitical situation. Don't you think so? All right. Max Schroeder, you say you're from Shanghai. Do you speak Wu dialect of the of the Chinese language? You mean, do I speak Shanghainese? I can. I can, but I'm not very good at it. I don't feel comfortable saying it because it's just I don't say it a whole lot, but I totally understand. Yeah. I could, yeah. All right. Mm. From Paul Flynn, Lay, if it's true that she has had 50,000 North Vietnamese, does it not give more credence to an attack on Taiwan having the American fighting on two fronts? You mean 50,000 North Koreans, not Vietnamese? I'm not quite sure if that's what you meant. From unconventional ideas, Lay, will PLA generals revolt before going to war if Xi Jinping orders it? Um, I don't know. We'll see. There's a chance. Excuse me. Uh, Anthony Miller. Lay, good evening. Is any American politicians listening to your podcast? If not, someone needs to get them too, as your podcasts are painting a very disturbing picture of what is to come. Um, what? Okay. So what I'm telling you has been widely discussed over and over in the Chinese language media outside China, not in the mainland Chinese media. So if you follow certain Taiwanese media or some Chinese American media, in language media, what I present you is not. Uh, I'm just compiling information I read there to present here. So you see how there is a disconnect between the knowledge shared by the Chinese Americans or the Chinese who care about Taiwan, who care about China, living outside China, versus the English speaking world. And there's a big disconnect. And my job is to bridge that disconnect. Okay. All right. Um, from Moonwalker, if Taiwan versus China war breaks out, how many mainland Chinese would be willing to fight and not flee the country, considering the one-child policy? I saw someone mention 1%. I don't know where that number came from, but I remember seeing a number saying 1%. But I don't know if that survey was taken outside China. Inside China, it's very difficult to get any real surveys because people are afraid to speak their mind. So surveys inside China do not give me much information. Etsy, any winners in a World War III? Um, didn't the author Yuan said that there will be no communism? The winner is that there will be no communism in the world, and that's a winner. Okay. From Jeff Ramos, like, do you think Xi's daughter has any influence on his father? She's a Harvard grad. Maybe she knows better the Western world. Um, I'm sure family. I know that I read. During the Hong Kong protest, his daughter and wife were very upset with how he dealt with Hong Kong a couple of years ago, and the rumor even had it that his wife was so upset that she moved out, and for a while he was flying solo. Um, but he's the leader of the world's largest communist state. So what can two women what can two women in his household do, right? From Party Pat, thank you for the donation. Um, Frank E. Good answer. A good answer. A friend once told me, if you want to understand CCP, talk to low level workers in China. They really understand inner workings and intentions of CCP. Yes, that's true. People at lower levels in society, I think it's not just in China, here as well. They're not afraid to uh, speak up. Whereas people in the higher social strata, they have too much vested interest. Sometimes they are afraid to speak up. Well, I mean, that's just um, it's not always true, but there seems to be that tendency. So, Stephen Drysdale, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Lei, in the event of a war with China, how do you expect Chinese diaspora to react? Um, it will be divided. They will always there will always be a few who will speak for China. Um, but I think they're the minority. They are not the majority. Um, there are a lot of questions. It takes me time to read. From China's secret police, thank you, Lei. What advice would you give to Chinese diaspora who think we know where a secret overseas service center is, but don't feel safe coming forward to the authorities? Um, that's a good question. I think the Western media need to cover. I think Western politicians and Western media, up until this past Lunar New Year, I still see um, Western politicians, like for example, in New York, Chuck Schumer, right? He's the Senate Majority Leader. He's a senator from New York. Him and this New York governor, the mayor, all went to attend this Chinatown Chinese Lunar New Year parade that was controlled, or that is controlled by the Chinese consulate in New York. It's basically a Chinese consulate event, but all of our politicians went there um, to show their support. Um, it's very sad. Speaking of the ignorance, do they really not know that those events were controlled and supported by the Chinese consulate in New York? I mean, their aides, their community liaison should tell them. For years, people know those events excluded. Like if you're a Tibetan group, right? If you're underground Christian group, if you're Tibetan, if you're Uyghurs, or if you're Falun Gong, you're not. They don't allow you to participate in that Chinese New Year parade. So for years, Falun Gong fought to be in that parade, but they were excluded, and media reported it. Why would our politicians still want to support? Why would Chuck Schumer and New York governor and New York City mayor went to support a CCP endorsed event that discriminates Tibetans, Uyghurs, and Falun Gong in New York? And that bothers me. So if West and then guess who? I think it was one of the major network, is it ABC or CBS? It's either ABC or CBS was the media sponsor of that event. They did a half-hour program on that event. It's just very pathetic. So if mainstream America does not step up to protect Chinese Americans, then our society, if Chinese diaspora are fearful living in America, then it's our loss, right? That means we've allowed CCP to infiltrate our society, to do whatever they want, to create this fear, to intimidate Chinese Americans. So we need to stop that. From Alan Mandel, thank you. Would downward path of China global economies affect decision making regarding Taiwan? Would there be move out of US dollar to Chinese yuan? I did a program on why Chinese yuan, it's impossible for Chinese yuan to replace the US dollar. I mean, it's not even a tradable currency. So what value does that offer you? When you get the Chinese yuan, you cannot convert it to other currencies. So it does not offer much value. You can only buy Chinese products. Um, Michael Mayo, thank you. Not a question, just a comment. A scary but sobering analysis. Thank you. Thank you. From Catherine Lay's deep dives are impeccable. Thankful for your long hours of research. Thank you. I will get some rest. All right. Okay, let me see. From Stephen Drysdale. Thank you, Lay. Well, thank you, everyone. I think that's the bottom of the questions. Um, that's all. Thank you very much. I do need to go get some rest. I will see you this Saturday. Okay? Alrighty. Bye bye. Thank you. Bye bye.